everyone, welcome to Yuumiverse podcast episode 2. Today's episode is going to be mostly about healing in Mythic Plus, and we have a special guest today here, Bus. I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Bussbussglug, and I am a healer in World of Warcraft. I'm currently playing an Oracle Disc Priest, and yeah.
Nice. Okay, so first things first, I think most of our audience always want to know how we got to where we are. So can you give us like kind of a background on how you got into WoW, when you got into WoW?
Yeah. I started playing WoW probably in 2006 or 7, early 2000s. And I was just playing for fun. I was playing RuneScape before that. And then, I don't know, I caught like the arena bug and I started doing PvP and started getting gladiator and started getting like really high rated and just like becoming addicted to competitiveness, I think. And then I was tired. I remember I was tired of waiting in queues all day in LFG. There was no like shuffle or solo system what's going on now. And so I don't know, I just found M plus that way and went from healing in arena to healing in M plus, and just the same like competitiveness and like enjoyment for that landscape like drew me to that. And so that's how I was
Okay,
doing
so,
that.
so which expansion was that?
When I started, it was in Burning Crusade. A little bit of classic, and then Burning Crusade is what I was doing a while
Oh,
back.
gotcha. Did you play
Yeah.
any games before WoW?
I was playing RuneScape, and then throughout the years, like when you'd go to friends' houses, you'd play like console games. I didn't really keep consoles at the house. I was more playing WoW, and just off and on. I skipped a lot of expansions, came back, and yeah.
So were you playing when Mythic Plus first came out?
No, it was
No.
BFA. It was. I don't think that's. Or wait, hold on. I don't think that's. No, it was before then. I'm pretty sure it had already been going on.
Okay, so you came
Yeah.
from a PvP background. Did you raid at
Yep.
all?
I didn't seriously raid. I've never really seriously raided. I've been in a few like decent guilds. Like the best was maybe like top 50 US, and I did that for maybe a tier or two. But I've never been like at the top of the rating game and been like doing it consistently throughout my career in WoW.
Okay,
Yeah, a few
gotcha.
tiers here and there.
All right.
Yeah.
And what it's kind of interesting seeing someone coming from PvP. So, what would you
Yeah.
say is like the biggest difference between PvP and PvE healing?
For me, it's not different because I communicate so heavily, and I think that's key in PvP, and that's why my comms are so heavy in PvE. Like I'll notice I'll be watching. I've been doing a lot of VOD reviews lately, and I'll notice a lot of people. I'll think like the audio is muted, but the comms are just like clear, and everyone
Yeah.
knows like what they're doing. But I feel the need to say, "Hey, Mage Barrier here," IBF now, like, and call. So, but I think for a majority of people, their experience with comms might be different in PvP versus PvE environment.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of relate to that because before I started playing retail, I was playing classic and I was raid leading. So, I'm used to
Oh, you were?
yeah,
That's
I was raid
awesome.
leading in a speedrun guild, in all the way up to Wrath Classic.
Let me
And
ask you.
yeah, go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that like I used to have to call all the cooldowns and everything when I was raid leading, so it kind of transferred over to retail, basically. Yeah, go ahead.
I love that. I just wanted to know, how did you feel like your comms were as a raid leader? Are they relaxed? Are they fast paced? Or what did you feel like they were looking back?
You mean in classic?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was too cluttered. I think in classic people tend to be more casual and not care too much about the details. So as a raid
Yeah.
leader, if you want to make the raid really good, you do need to kind of more detailed or specifically tell people what to do. And I think the biggest thing that makes a raid leader good is being able to identify what went wrong after every wipe, so that you're not banging your head into the boss like over and over doing the same mistakes. And that also translates really well into retail. So like, I mean, we both kind of know this season Candle King is a really hard boss to do, and yeah, basically I was progging that with my team for about an hour last week. Every wipe was something different happening. And we basically had to like problem solve and be like, okay, we need to do this here, we need to use this defensive here, we need to use cooldown here. It's kind of like the same idea, like problem
Yeah.
solving, kind of going through each wipe. Although in a Mythic Plus, you typically don't really wipe that many times. It was just like, that boss specifically.
Yeah.
And then last season, City of Threads last boss was kind of another one, or third boss even. Um, but yeah, so to answer your question, I think I don't really say too much if the raid is doing really well, but if the raid is struggling a little bit, I've raid led like multiple different like levels of raiding. So speedrun guild, it's more I'm directing people where to go. My husband was also raiding with me, so I was more the GM and I was doing the rosters and the assignments and everything, and he was
Wow.
more like directing the raid. But yeah, so I was more of like, we're gonna go this direction, we're gonna do this. I was making all the decisions and everything, and he was more like actually telling the raid what to do. And then we kind of split our roles. So I was dealing with more of the healer stuff. It was kind of crazy because when we were healing in Sunwell in TBC, I was literally telling people what to cast. Like, you need to greater heal this person right now. You need to chain heal during this time. Brutalis was like a crazy boss, and I think for classic raiders, they were I don't know, it might just be my guild or might just be my server. I was on Globulus, so it was like an RP server, and we just didn't really have like players that are more what do you call it, like hardcore. So I was basically telling everyone exactly what to cast, when to cast it. I made my own assignment sheets on Google Docs, and it was like a whole adventure. But I think that actually made me better at the game because I had to problem solve for other people. And when I really got better at the game was after Vanilla Classic, because Vanilla Classic I was a raider. Like that was when I first got into WoW. And then after in TBC, when my old GM quit, was when I became GM. And that was when I really started thinking about the game in like a different way, because I didn't have anyone to look up to. I had to do everything myself, and that's what makes you really good. I think that really carried over to retail, because in retail it's more you need to figure out what goes wrong yourself. Like nobody's going to help you unless you specifically know someone who will help you. Yeah.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm. All right. So you're one of the top healers in NA for Mythic Plus now. I think the biggest question I get asked, at least on my stream, is how did I get there? So can you give us like a background of like how you climbed up there, where you started, how you like networked and met a lot of people?
Yeah. So it's pretty interesting because I was at the highest level of arena, playing at the R1 level and
Mm-hmm.
getting gladiator on multiple classes every season. And you build a network when you're doing that, right? And when you go into PvE, it doesn't really transfer. You can say you were a high rated player in an environment within the game, but it's not the same thing, right? It's a whole new game that I have to learn. So I started from ground zero and worked my way up. And over the years, the same way I built like arena PvP relationships, the same way I started to build like M plus relationships, just started gaming with them and saying, hey, to myself, I would say, hey, I had a good time with this person. Why don't I just add this person and see if they want to play in the future? And so over the years, I've built like an enormous friend list of the best players in the game that enjoy playing with me and I enjoy playing with them. And it's been a lot of fun. So that is the really the way I got there, is just like playing with friends,
Yep.
enjoying the game
Yeah, I can
over
agree.
time,
I can
a
agree with
long
that.
time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
started playing like last year in Dragonflight Season 3, and
Yeah.
even now I have like a lot of people on my friends list. I think most of them I don't even talk to anymore and that I rarely play with. But there is no secret. Like, you basically have to
Yeah,
just build a network, talk to people, add people when you play.
yeah.
And yeah, as you can see, we both went through the same thing. Do you have like a memory of like the first person you really like stuck to and played with?
Well, recently that's applicable would be Formal, the mage that I play with.
Mm-hmm.
We we rediscovered that we actually played, like, I quit for a while and then came back during COVID when everyone was at home, right? And he was playing as well, and we were playing under different names. And then in drag, I ended up quitting. I was playing, and then I quit, and then I came back like a year later, and I played with Formal in Dragonflight, and we played a full season together, and we were having a great time. And then um, I left the game midway through Dragonflight and came back at War Within, and we played all last season. We've been playing all this season, super locked in. But uh, we were talking a few months ago and realized that we were playing together during COVID under completely different names. I had no idea. So we've been playing
Wow.
for a while. Yeah, maybe 5 years.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's kind of crazy, actually.
yeah, it's pretty cool. What about you? Since you've started, like, a year or two ago.
Yeah, so Dragonflight Season 3, halfway through the season, I was basically pugging the entire
Yeah,
time. I started playing with my husband, so I guess we weren't like entirely like solo pugging because we were healer and tank. He was a tank. And
that's nice.
yeah, so I would always be the one like making the groups and stuff because he's like he has social anxiety. Like everyone who has social
Mm.
anxiety will understand like how hard it is to play Mythic Plus. Like it's really
Yeah.
hard. You have to reach out to people. People will not talk to you unless you talk to them first. And so I was building teams and stuff as much as I could. I think a couple like fell over and then had to rebuild from the ground up. When I really found my own team was I think it was a month before season ended. I had just main swapped over to Mistweaver. That was also when I discovered that playing meta is very important. I was trying to play this priest because, well, from the knowledge that I had coming into retail, was there were guides and stuff like maybe on Wowhead, maybe on whatever, and so they had a tier list that said Disc Priest was at the top at the time, but I did not know that it was already transitioning over to Shadow Priest and Resto Druid. So I still made a Disc Priest, and then for a month, like I was kind of stuck. I made it to like almost 3,500 before I just stopped getting into keys, and people were just always asking for Mistweaver or Resto Druid, and I was like, well, I don't know what to do now because I'm pugging and I can't get into keys. So I made a Mistweaver. I got lucky in one of the heroic runs I went to. And I got Rage Heart, which was like the trinket at the time that you needed to live all the one shots and everything.
Yeah.
And then after that, like 2 weeks later, I had already caught up to my Priest's IO, which was really quick. Like I was just learning a new class. And it just goes to show, like, if you play meta, you just have like such an advantage over other people who just like literally can't get into keys. I think the most important thing to improve is to play the game more. And if you can't play the game, how are you going to improve, right? So, and then after I started playing Mistweaver, 2 weeks later, I got to about like 35, 3,600. I don't remember exactly. And it was like 3 weeks before the season ended. It was a Sanguine week, and the at the time those affixes were really bad. Like literally no one was playing that week. And then I found this group of 4 in queue that was like in there for a while looking for a healer. I think my IO was like slightly too low for them, but they were like, you know what, no one's playing right now, let's just get them in. And then we did a couple keys together, linked up really well. And then yeah, from that's how I met them. And then we ended the season around like 37, 72, which is like, that another 200
Yeah.
IO from where I started, and obviously got title that season. And then yeah, we went from there. We played together again the next season in Dragonflight Season 4, which thank God I met them because Dragonflight
Yeah.
Season 4 LFG was very dead. There was just no one playing. And
Mm.
yeah, thank God I met those people at the time, and I was so happy I started playing just like as the season earlier when it was good and LFG was good. Because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to network with those people. But those people stuck around basically, and um, all the way fast forward to the War Within season 1. That was how I got into my first Mythic raiding guild. At the time, I had no Mythic raid experience, but because I met those guys in Dragonflight season 3, played with them, got title in season 3 and 4, they were like, okay, you know what? You got title with us as a healer. I think you're a good enough player to Mythic raid. We actually are recruiting one right now. And yeah, that's how I got my first CE last season.
Wow, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Unfortunately, last season, I think the tank quit.
Hmm.
Obviously, last season, tanking was really bad.
Yeah, the
And
worst.
then I had to pug for like a month or two before I found the current team that I'm playing with right now.
Hmm. Nice. Yeah, Formal and I, we've done a lot of pugging this season and last season as well. It was tough last season.
Mm-hmm.
No one really wanted to play. I didn't play Dragonflight season 4. Could you compare it to last season with the
Yeah.
LFG experience?
Yeah. Um, I think Dragonflight season 4 was, I guess, still better off than last season, like towards the end. I think last season, in the beginning, it was actually doing really well. And then
Yeah.
somewhere down like the middle or something, it just became really bad. But I think the bigger issue was that tanking was the problem. So, like, you
Yeah.
would have like a full group of 4 and you would just not have a tank for like hours. And I think that was the main issue. I don't think that was as big of an issue in season 4. Season 4 is more like it was kind of dead, but it was like even. Like, sometimes you had a tank, sometimes you had a healer, like, yeah, whatever. But last season, it was more towards the end of season that was the extreme. That was worse than season 4. But yeah, overall, like on average, um, I guess last season was better because if you look at how many title holders there were, season 4 there were only like 600 something versus last season
Mm.
there were like 1500.
Yeah.
So yeah, the start of season last season was when like the population got inflated because title is based off of percentage. So the more people that are playing, the more people get title. So I guess season 4 was kind of hard actually. I think it was my hardest title so far. I mean, I've only gotten 3, but um season 4, I think it was because a combination of a bunch of people had quit already, and only the people who were specifically going for title were still playing that season. And so I had to basically be top 0.1% within those people. And another thing that was hard was there was no LFG basically. I think I got like maybe like 2 to 3 IO keys that season from pugging, and the rest was with
Mm.
my group. And unfortunately, my group had like scheduling issues. So like 2 of them would have to go to bed early, but then one of them couldn't get on until like later. So we basically only had like a 2 to 3 hour window before we could when we could play. Yeah, and
Mm.
then I think so we had our old tank that quit as well, and then my husband came back and actually tanked for us for the rest of the season. So yeah, there was that. We missed like one bursting week or whatever. That was kind of stupid. Like
Yeah.
you could only push on specific weeks and stuff. I actually timed my last Oldemon on Fort Bolstering because it was like literally the last 2 weeks of the season, and I had no choice. Like I literally had to. That was the last Fort week. Then yeah,
Wow. So, do you think now that you've gotten title 3 times, you feel like you're locked in for the future and you can get it every season now? Are
no,
you confident in that? You're
no,
not.
definitely no.
Why?
Um, I think title is not just how good you are as a player. I think
Mm.
it's a lot on your networking and making friends, and you have to
Mm.
constantly have that. And you don't know when people are going to quit. You don't know when somebody else is going to come back. I mean, I guess it is technically
Yeah, that's
possible
fair.
to pug to title, but a lot of people don't have that time. Like sitting in LFG is like lots of time. I
Brutal.
think I was blessed when I started playing that like I wasn't working and I had already graduated from university. So I was basically like full-time pugging. Like there were days where I was sitting in queue for hours and like I would probably only get
Yeah.
like 2, 3 keys in for the entire day. And a lot of people just don't really have that time. So you kind of just rely on like having friends and stuff. I think at this point it is so much easier for me, like compared to when I started. Because when I started, I had only met that one group that was playing. But last season, when my other tank quit, it forced me to meet a lot of new people, and then I also started streaming and making content on YouTube. That also helped a lot because actually a lot of people met me because of my stream. So yeah, I think now I would say it's kind of easier, but I wouldn't say like 100% like I can get title every season now, because even if I go and take a break and come back, I might not have the same people to play with anymore. Because as soon as
Mhm.
you go and take a break, like sure, you can do whatever, but people will replace you. They will just go find a different person to play with. And like to get back into your group will just be kind of hard unless you have already built. I know a couple people that have like built friendships like that where like you're always welcome back whenever, like anyone we get is a replacement just like temporarily, but I don't think I have any like friendships like that outside of like my husband maybe.
Mhm.
But um
Yeah.
yeah.
Was okay. So from that perspective, I understand it. But if you think back to your first season when you were at like your peak performing level, do you feel like you still are that level of a player, or do you feel more improved? Like, do you feel like you're steady improving, or do you feel like now it's just about the relationships, you're at the top of your game, it's just about being steady?
Um in terms of being in title range, because title is really different from like the top.
Right.
Like last season I was like 3640. Title was like 3458. I was like
Mm.
almost like 200 points above. So I guess like title is kind of different, and I think back then like I was good enough to get title, but I don't think I was good enough to be like, you know, 100 200 points above title. Um and I definitely think I improved a lot more since then. Especially because my first season I had only played like one class basically to title. Second season I had to reroll to Resto Druid and then get title as Resto Druid. Last season I had to learn Disc Priest, and then now it's Oracle Disc Priest. It's a different spec every season. So overall, like I think I'm more what do you call it, well rounded, and especially because last season I also got title as Prop Paladin and Og. So
Wow.
yeah, so actually the funny story, I keep telling people this, but so after my team would go to bed, it was about like 8 p.m. my time. Like I told you my schedule, right? Like we play in the afternoon. They're on EST, so it's like late for them. And then afterwards, I would literally just have no one to play with. And at the time, that was my streaming schedule. Like I would stream from like 9 p.m. to like 3 a.m. because I don't know why I did that. I think that was because like that was when people would like host me and stuff because they would go to bed, and I was like, that's a perfect opportunity to grow my stream. But then, well, the problem now is I don't have a tank to play with at this time. So that was when I made my own prop paladin, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do it because I can't wait in queue anymore. So I made a prop paladin, and then luckily I had some friends to play with. It's crazy how
Wow.
much more popular you are when you're a tank.
Yeah.
Like
It's messed up.
people would literally like give me more chances if I even like messed up or anything, because they're like, you know what, like you're the best we got. We gotta just like roll with you.
Yeah. Tanking is so hard.
Yeah. And I
Do you think it's
think
harder than being a healer now that you have that perspective?
last season, yeah, definitely. Because last season's tanking was crazy. Although I will say that Prop Paladin was easier for me to get into as a healer main, because I had
Mm.
already like known all the utility and everything. Most of the tanks I played with before were more like I'm just doing my rotation, and I had to tell them, like last season I had to tell my tank like you need to sack this person at this time, you need to spell with this person at this time, you need to do this, you need to do this. I can give you an example of Dawnbreaker's second boss last season where the tank was just spell wording himself for the tank buster, and I was like, no, you should spell word me because I can give you paint slip, and it just works better that way. And like he's gonna live with paint slip anyway, but spell word does way more value for a person who's like living the AoE overlap. And so I didn't have to do any of that when I started playing Prot Paladin because as a healer, I already knew that. So as a healer, I think like going into tanking, it's not as hard as you think. You basically just have to learn like the routes, how to pull, and how to survive. And last season that was hard, but this season it's no longer as hard to survive as a tank. So it's mostly just like routing and stuff. But I think that made me better as a healer, being able to like understand the tank and how they need help and stuff. Because ever since I started playing Prot Paladin last season, I was able to help my own tank more, like the tank that I
Yeah.
played with, and I was able to tell them, okay, so I understand you have like a weak point over here. I can give you paints up here, especially as a disc priest that has like a ton of externals. You're able to help them way more. And
Mm.
yeah, I think last season tanking was definitely like the hardest role. Like I wouldn't blame anyone who quit over it. And I also think the community gives tanks like a really hard time too. Like think about how many things can kill you in Grim Batol. Like probably almost like the entire dungeon, right? And as soon as you die, people are like, "Wow, this tank sucks." I don't know how much pugging you did, but that was basically
Yeah.
how pugs treated tanks, and it was kind of insane. Like obviously, if you're a tank player, that doesn't feel good. Like you're trying to live all these pulls, and then as soon as you mess up once, keys bricked, and people are like, "Yep, see ya, this tank sucks." So
Mm.
in that aspect, I would say tanking is harder. They also get treated worse by the community. Um, but I think this season it's more equal. So that's good.
That's good.
What do you think?
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, it's clear in the numbers. It was always easy to find a healer last season in LFG, mostly for like I don't know, towards the end of the season when you were doing like those keys. My experience was I was doing like 17s. I was like top 10 in the NA range, so we're doing 17s, and in LFG I'd always see four people with the healer and just looking for a tank. So, and
Yep.
that combined with being in the keys and seeing, like you said, in Grim Batol or any of the massive tank busters, like in Dawnbreaker 2, right? With the second boss, like it just got really spooky, scary, crazy. And the healing experience wasn't the same. You like with the Void Weaver profile, fairly, it was a decent time to like pick people back up, right?
Yep.
And there was no avoiding like one shot mechanics when you didn't have, any defensive for that. So yeah, tanking definitely harder last season. This season, I find that tanks some tanks may make it harder on themselves by trying to do everything that they are used to in a tanking role, like comms. And someone recently told me that if you're tanking an M plus and you're trying to have the best comms, you're either going to end up having like panic comms or probably like dead. You know what I mean? Because that's just so much that you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to do. It's very overwhelming of a role because you're doing it in real time and you can't really have like a clear plan of it. Like if you're a healer and you're going on boss fights, you can make notes of what you want to use and when, but doing comms on top of that as a tank, I feel like calling the stops, the kicks, and trying to operate extremely difficult.
I agree.
So yeah, I think we have it even if we learn to communicate and delegate roles properly, and that's just from my experience. Some tanks are amazing at doing all of the above, and some could benefit from shifting the roles.
Mm-hmm.
And letting everyone else do their thing.
Yeah, for sure. And that's like one thing that's kind of different from previous seasons where you had Og. Og was like
Yeah,
really good at helping call stuff and stuff because the rotation's kind of whatever. But yeah, we don't have that anymore.
yeah,
Everyone's kind of adapting to that, and even my current group, where we like always overlap stops and stuff because everyone's focused on their own thing, and that
yeah,
we're always like, can somebody call stuff? Like Boomkin's the easiest, surely, right? Like the Boomkin can call stuff. But yeah, I don't know. Like there are even some pulls where I call stuff. Like there was like the
yeah,
demolition pull in Floodgate where I have to call the stops for the reloads, and if I don't call them, like they just go off, and I'm healing. But like that pack
Yeah.
is like just not really that much that healing intensive. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna help out here. Um, and then Priory first pull is really crazy. If you're doing the like new strat where you have casters in it, there's a lot of like we've wiped that multiple times. I would say like 2 days ago we spent like 3 or 4 hours in there and we were just wiping just because we had no one to call stuff. Things were always overlapping, bolts were going off, and it's really hard for the tank on that pull as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think the main problem is like we're not used to not having log anymore, and first of all they had a lot of stops themselves, but second of all they were always calling stuff depending on the group you were in, I guess. Yeah, last season tanks definitely did not really call stuff unless you were just like a superhero or something. Um, but yeah, like you brought up a really good point with that. Um, I think in general, tanks are just really hard because of how many things they have to do. But and you can never get rid of that. Like they have routing and stuff. They have their survivability. They have their threat. Like threat's like a huge issue this season as well. I don't know if you've
Yeah,
noticed that.
yeah, I have. But that just led me to think about like, what do you think healers do that make it harder on themselves, on ourselves?
Or
In the same way I
ourselves.
said that about tanks. Yeah. What
Hmm. That's a good question. I think um what do you think?
I think it just is like such a fast-paced environment that me personally, I get caught up in the speed of it, and so sometimes my comms will also match that pace and not and that can like alter the environment of the key, right? Of the comms,
Mm-hmm.
especially at a high level. Like you want to be relaxed and concise and intentional and to the point. But if you're matching the pace of the key and you're not realizing it and you're muddying comms a little bit and the vibes, like you can brick a key on a pull right after the first boss of Rookery because you know you're talking about how you missed MC on the ad that you're pulling into boss and then this and that, you know, just to give like a little
Oh.
visual, like yeah, it can get a little overwhelming sometimes. So I think like comms goes both for healing and for tanking for every player involved. And the other thing would be planning. I've heard that some people are extremely in depth, like writing out every defensive from every player, including themselves at what time in the fights and what times in the key. I've attempted to do that at points in my career, but I've always just been kind of like a react and adapt and have a general flow of how things are going to go. So, but just knowing what I have at my disposal and when I want to use it generally in the key is a way that I think I can get a lot better and like memorizing that and practicing it over and over again, finding what works and just doing that.
Yeah, I agree with that. And you kind of sparked like another idea for me. So
Yeah.
when you're talking about comms and stuff, like I think a really bad habit I do is like right after someone dies, I just immediately go to the death log and I'm like, how did this person die? Was it my fault? Could I have saved them? But like I
Yeah.
need to just like move on. The key is continuing on. Um, but like I think it stemmed from when I was pugging back then because I would always be like, because whenever someone died, I would always check to see if it was my fault or if they just
Yeah.
straight up stood in a mechanic. That's like one thing that like healers should just we should just move on. Like the comms
Mm.
are continuing. We need comm space for like other stuff. And another thing is I think whenever my tank is dying, I'm always like very like I gotta save them. I gotta make sure I could do something about it. Or if anyone even like I think last season it was more like the tank is dying and I'm like I gotta focus more attention to them and then I don't pay attention to myself because of it. But this season it's more like everyone, I guess. Like whenever somebody says I'm dying, I'm like immediately over like I gotta save this person.
Yeah.
And then there were a lot of times where we overlap like paints up with their personal or something. Like I should have just said like you have a personal, just use it versus like I'm panicking, I'm gonna personal or gonna externalist person. Um, but yeah, like you said, with the planning on CDs and everything, I think MRT nodes work really well with like rating because like everything is basically like static and um you know exactly when events are happening. But I think in the dungeon environment, there's just too many like variants. Like sometimes I guess you could do MRT nodes on bosses, but even then it's not really that simple. Like for
Yeah.
example, on the Candle King, um we want to like AMZ for the circles when you clear, but sometimes you can't do that because like sometimes the baits are like kind of off and whatever, and then you kind of to just adapt to that. But in general, in my head, like I know the CDs and I just kind of move it around, like I shuffle it based off of like what we use and stuff. But I think if you're just trying to follow like a formula exactly, it doesn't really work that well all the time. And a really good player would be able to adapt to that and move things around. And I think that's part of the reason why it is so hard to get good at healing when you're first starting and when you're trying to improve. Like when someone asks me, "Oh, so how do you plan your CDs here? How do you do this? How do you do this?" And I'm like, "Well, there isn't just one answer for everything. I can give you like a general guidance, which is why like you do VOD reviews and stuff, and I do like guides where I basically go through everything I'm casting to try and help people out. But in their key, it might not be the same. Like they could take damage elsewhere, and they could something else could happen. Um, Especially because like this season, Oracle Disc Priest is so like it's not like a fluid rotation like Void Weaver. Like Void Weaver is basically you send your ramp at this time all the time. Oracle's like you have a different premonition every time. Sometimes you penance defensively, sometimes you shield this person, sometimes yeah, it's I don't know how I would like help someone like get better at making decisions as Oracle. Maybe you have a better idea with that?
I think that's an incredibly like individual decision, and the best thing we can do as people that are being watched occasionally is give them the toolkit that they need so they know they can make the decision to use whatever they have at their disposal at whatever time they need. Like you might be saving clairvoyance on swamp face for the intermission phase, and I might be knowing that I need to use it during um all the in betweens, like before I go into the intermission. Like there's different. It's
Mm-hmm.
nuanced. It's by the key. It's by the level, and it's just about making sure people know what they can use. I think.
Yeah, even personally, I'm trying to get better at that because sometimes I'm like, I have to save this paint sub for this thing. And
Yeah.
sometimes it leads to like dying because you're like saving your defensive for too long. And then sometimes I'm sitting on two paint subs because I'm already saving it for the next pull, but somebody's already dying on this pull, so I may as well just use it, right?
Mm.
And that's like I can give you an example like of a key recently I did where the tank was dying. Like when we pulled a bunch of mobs into the first boss of Cinderbrew, and he was like, I'm weak right now, and then I was like, I gotta paint sub him right now, like he's gonna die, and he lived through that because of the paint sub. But then he was like, oh, now I feel bad because you need the paint subs for like all the dots and stuff, and I'm like, if you died there, the key would be over. So like we have to just do what we can, and moving on, we have to adapt to that. So now we're down a paints up, but I have to like basically tell someone, okay, you need a health pot here. You need to like do this. We have a shaman, so he can like kind of healing surge himself, maybe, and he will lose like a little bit of damage for that. But compared to straight up wiping because our tank died because I didn't want to use my paints up on them, that's like even more silly than like losing like a little bit of damage to like have the DPS kind of help out with everything. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, and same with like darkness. Like sometimes we use darkness to like come back as a CD, um, and then sometimes the tank just uses it on themselves. So for example, on the first boss of Floodgate, Big Mama, we normally use darkness for the second round of jumpstart, but sometimes the tank uses it on himself on the pull like before, and then we're like, oh shoot, we don't have that CD anymore, and then I have to use my uppies early. Like I usually save my uppies for a later pull. So yeah, it's kind of like you just really have to send whatever you have when you need it, so that later on, like, I mean, I guess it's like more like you need to save the pull now versus like you're saving your cooldowns forever for next key. I don't know. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but you basically summed that up really well.
I think something that helped me get comfortable mentally with sending things that I don't want to be sending then is when I played Arena and I played a Holy Paladin, and I would so often get killed before I bubbled that I was trying to bubble like frantically and it just wouldn't go off.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that same sort of thing where it's just like I should have just sent the bubble before I was like panicking, sort of thing. And it's like if I can have that adaptability, then everything will figure itself out, I think.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads to like the next topic I was kind of gonna go over.
Yeah.
So I know you like VOD review people a lot and like basically go over what they're casting and stuff. So I was wondering how you use those VODs to apply to your own gameplay and how you improve on your own gameplay.
Absolutely. Well, it's I do that with a combination of comparing it to my gameplay, and it's similar to what any professional sports team would do when they're looking at the best teams in the world play and comparing it to their playbook and their footage. And so I'm looking at the best players in the world when I'm doing these VOD reviews. And then I'm applying it to my gameplay and trying to see what they used when and see what I use in the same moment. And if I was not doing it at the level that they were, then I was trying to get better and improve it. But if it was working for me, then I'll continue to do what I'm doing, and gain confidence in my abilities to know what I'm doing when.
Yep. And I think one of the biggest things I've gained from having a bigger network is having other people to talk to. Like right
Yes.
now, we're like kind of talking to each other. We're both healers. We're like,
Yeah.
okay, we do this here. And then I think it's a really good thing to have your peers and have them discuss with you. Oh, you use this cooldown here. That's interesting. I do this here. I didn't think about that. And I think that's like the best part about having people to talk to around like your level or higher. And
Yes.
that is one thing that I did not have when I first started playing, and I think that is
Mm.
like the biggest difference to my like rate of improvement. I can get better way faster now.
Mm.
Especially, I can give you an example from when I started rating. So last season I got my first CE, and this season, well, you know Drogo, TGP player. I'm in
Yeah.
his guild now for this season for rating.
Nice.
Um, and I think one thing that I really like in this guild is we have other healers that are more experienced at raiding than I am. I'm more just like a Mythic Plus healer. And I just got recruited because they needed more players, and I met Drogo from Mythic Plus as well. Um, but I think I was able to improve my healing in raid so much more because we had people that were helping review. There's this other healer in my guild who's also playing Mistweaver this season. I was playing Mistweaver in raid, um, and he looks at logs all the time, and he tells me, "Oh, it looks like your crit isn't high enough here. Looks like you need this. Looks like you need this." And then we like constantly compare. Oh, so you had like higher ancient teachings healing. Why? And then I look at his log and I'm like, oh, you have higher enveloping mist healing. Why? And then we kind of just like go back and forth and stuff like that. And that really helps me. I don't know if it helps like other people as much, but like for me, um, especially like I'm not as experienced as like some of the players who have been playing for years. There are certain things like I just can't really know. Like if you don't know what you don't know, that is like when you get stuck. But if you can
Mm.
break out of that, and if somebody else gives you an idea of what you weren't doing correctly, then you figure it out. Um, And another example is when I was healing the Candle King, we got through the fight, but then later on, somebody showed me a talent that I wasn't really using. I think it was like the extra penance bolts or whatever, and I was like, "Oh, actually, yeah, I didn't look at that. Like, why did I not look at that?" But it was like something so simple that I just overlooked it, and I didn't
Mm.
know that I could do that. Or maybe like sometimes you just skip over like the simplest things that other people notice, and yeah. How do you feel about that? Would you agree?
I do agree, and I also was thinking it's so interesting that, well, maybe you don't find it interesting because it's normal to you that you use Warcraft logs, right? Do you do that in keys as well to review like when people are using what, or mostly just for raid?
Um, I actually rarely use Warcraft logs, but
Okay.
I've been using it a lot more recently. But yeah.
So, um, yeah, I've never been extremely deep into that, but towards the start of when Oracle was getting popular a month or two ago, I did dive deep to try and understand like why we should be using what when. But in general, I'm much more of a visual learner, and that's why I really enjoy and appreciate doing the VOD reviews because it allows me to see in real time what people are doing. And some people prefer Warcraft logs and seeing the spell cast sequence, in text and in that way.
Oh yeah,
So
I'm
it's
actually not
interesting.
as good at that.
Yeah.
And I've just recently been getting better at that because of the people in my guild that are telling me stuff. So yeah, I would agree. Like I'm also kind of a visual learner, and how I got better in general, when I first started playing was reviewing my own VODs. I would always record my own keys, and then sometimes, like at the end, I would go back and watch it, and I would notice something that I didn't notice while I was playing. And
How would you record your own keys, by the way?
how?
Yeah.
I just used OBS.
Okay.
Yeah. And I
Cool.
would just like basically I had a full I think I still have my second SSD has like 2 terabytes or something, and I have like a few hundred gigabytes of like old recordings of my keys there. Um
Wow.
and I already uploaded a lot of them to YouTube or a lot of them to like Google Drive. Um but I kind of like to keep them there because I want to look back and be like, oh, this is where I came from. This is, I think like a couple months ago, I was going through footage for YouTube and I saw some keys that were bricked and we're like, oh, this happened. Oh, this happened. And it's kind of cool looking back now, but at the time, I was really using these VODs to see where I could have done better. Like if I didn't see something, um, or if the gameplay was going too fast and I didn't notice something. I haven't been doing that as much recently because I can generally like I'm generally better at like identifying my mistakes immediately now. But I think one thing that was really cool was when I first started making healer guides myself and going through my own VODs and explaining what I'm doing, I actually noticed some things I'm doing wrong. And I'm like, oh, actually, I didn't even do it correctly here, but we still got through it. Um, but I actually leave those in because I want to show, like, I mean, I see you leave in your mistakes as well, too. But I just want to show people, like, you don't have to be perfect. Like, nobody is perfect. And
Yeah.
sometimes you can still get through these keys, even if you're not playing perfect. So, yeah, it's kind of crazy how, like, I'm making a guide and I'm making those mistakes because things happen. And I think it's more valuable to show people how you get through things despite having mistakes versus like, oh, yeah, you basically have to play perfectly to get through this, which is not true at all.
Yeah. And you probably have a massive advantage over a lot of players because a lot of people believe that the best way to learn is to teach. And so by you doing what you're doing, you're getting better probably a lot quicker than a lot of other people because you're really trying to understand the material so you can deliver it in the best way. That's a cool thing.
Yeah. And that's exactly how I got better at WoW in general when I was raid leading. I had to
Yeah.
basically look up all the mechanics myself. Um, and I noticed like whenever I'm like just a participant in a raid, I'm more like, yeah, I'm just gonna let the raid leader tell me what to do.
Yeah.
But when I actually have to do the work, it's way different. It's like
Mm.
presenting a project in class. Like you're the one who has to like know everything that you're doing, and versus like just being a follower, you do miss a lot of things. Um, but yeah.
Right.
Um, okay, so moving on to the next topic.
Yeah.
Um, Pugging versus group healing. So I don't know how much pugging you've done, but I want to know your opinion on what the difference is between the two.
I mean, Bus Pug has been in the trenches, for quite a while. I've definitely pugged my way around. And sometimes, I mean, a lot of times, like I mentioned earlier, like Formo and I, it's really helpful to have someone that you play with consistently to try and get into a group. Whether it's if you're a DPS, you have a healer. If you're a healer, you have a DPS or a tank or any combination. Um, but I mean, I'm just trying to make sure when I'm pugging that I am getting better on a personal level. You can't control what goes on in the key. Like a lot of times it could go left really quickly, and all you are is a healer. All you can do is your job, and then the group breaks up and then you have to get back in queue and you have to restart this whole experience, or you're waiting to start a key for half an hour while you're going over the route and then you brick on the first pull and it's not resilient. Like everything can go any way that it goes, but at the end of the day, I'm just looking for personal growth when I'm pugging and hopefully some relationships to continue playing and continue getting better and having fun.
Yep, I definitely
But it
agree
is
with your.
brutal. It is brutal. I'll
It
say that.
is.
Sorry.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. And I
Yeah.
agree with your point where you mentioned personal growth because I think
Yeah.
there's a lot you can improve on in a pug because it's more like counted on yourself. You can't tell people, I need a defensive here, I need you to pop this here. And so you have to figure out how to get through that yourself. And I think that is how I got better, like so much faster when I was pugging back then. And I think what makes me want to like pug more now is like I want to practice more of that like reactionary healing where like I just have to get through it. If people use their defensives wrong or people just straight up don't use anything, then I have to like figure it out, right? You're not just going to let people die as a healer. You have to figure out how to deal with it. And for me personally, when I pug, um, I always pay attention to my team's defensives. I've found that a lot of them, or most of them, always defensive on the first AoE if there's like several like damage events happening. So I always save my externals for like when they're out. I just figured like that's if you were pugging as a DPS, that's what you would do. You would just always defensive the very first one. Like when we played with an AUG back then, they would always Zephyr the very first one. Um, so I would always save like my powered barrier or my like whatever for later because I know that people are going to run out eventually. And that's how I plan my CDs that way. In terms of looking at tanks, I generally look at their cooldowns. I have everything tracked. I guess CH doesn't really have as much, but when it was Paladin, they had Ardent, Bubble, IF tier, Guardian. I had like so many different things, and I had to track everything. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, so basically, like in terms of cooldown usage, I tend to save mine for like emergencies because I think people normally just always front load everything in pugs, from what I noticed. But
Yeah.
yeah, like you said, like personal healing, personal improvement is like so important, and you don't get that as much when you're healing in a group because everything's all planned out and you know exactly what's going to happen. But I think it's the skills that you get from pugging that helps you improve in like your group. When something goes wrong, you're ready to heal that because you are used to the pugging experience where things always go wrong.
Definitely. And I think it's pretty important for people to like try and I mean like if you're pugging now and you're dissatisfied and you realize that you're more of a team person and it's difficult for you socially to do that, like just trying to consider all different factors and reasons why someone that's trying to escape the pug life isn't able to. Like I I think really just have to try and make your best effort to play with someone that you enjoyed playing with again. Like try and make a connection to be able to play with them again, because you can't get out of pug like hell or prison by yourself. Like this is a team sport. It's 5 people. Think of it as a team. You want to win the key together. And so you can be a lot stronger individually if you're in a team, I think. So just try and push towards that. If you're not having the best time in pugs, try and find a way to find players that have schedules that line up, at least 1 or 2 people, and try and build something from that. It's easy to get discouraged in Pugland, I know, but that's my advice.
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely agree. Um, I know personally, like, a couple of people, including my husband, who, like, just hate talking to people. And
Yeah,
it's just really hard in general to make friends, because a lot of people have that pug mentality where, like, as soon as the key's done, they just leave the key. But
yeah,
if you do enough keys, eventually you will find people that just want to stick around and stuff. Like, I think out of like 100 keys, I probably get like 10 keys that, like, where I meet nice people, or maybe even 20, honestly. Um, like a very few. I think out of like maybe 100 or 200 people on my friends list that I've added, maybe like a couple of them really play with me outside of like,
yeah.
yeah.
Me
So,
too.
yeah, exactly. Um, so I don't want people to get discouraged just because, like, you added like a couple people and none of them want to play again. Like, it happens. There's so many. Just because like those people don't play with you doesn't not mean you're not going to find people that are going to play with you.
No, not at all. I'm agreeing with you fully. Like I have a large friends list, and I play with just a few people. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. All right. So moving on to the next topic, Oracle Dispriest. How do we feel about the current tuning after the nerfs? How do we feel about the rotation, just like the playstyle in general?
I'm really enjoying Oracle. I feel like it's in a good spot. And I'm surprised at how it feels now versus how it felt 2 weeks ago when the nerfs first came out. And you were sharing that you guys progged Candle King for a few hours recently. On that Tuesday when patch came out, we also did as well. And it was like the first few days was just a lot of trial and error, really, just trying to figure out how to play this new version of Oracle, because it seemed like he got gutted overnight. Like nothing was hitting the same, nothing was healing the same. I felt weaker, and I felt like I was gonna have to reroll. But as I've gotten more gear, I'm 673 now. I have more
Oh, wow.
reps yeah, I got pretty lucky recently. And so I'm saying if you're not, there's hope. Like I feel pretty comfortable with Oracle's toolkit right now is what I'm trying to say. Like I think we're in a good spot, and I'm excited to we're trying to get Resilient 18. I think we'll get some 19s this week, and I'm ready to heal 19s. Like I feel capable with what I have. Um and I think that we're in a good spot. What do you think? How's it been for you?
Um, so basically after the nerf, I don't think I did a key that was like hard for healing. So, and I've been just really focused on like raiding for the past few weeks. So like
Yeah.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I was basically just raiding. So like right after the nerfs, I didn't really do any keys. And I was just listening to other people. I was like asking Clemens, "What do you think about this? Have you healed this yet? Have you healed this yet?" And I think it was less of my own experience and more hearing from other people. But when I actually got to do a key, I think it was like a 17 Cinderbrew or whatever. My penance was just not topping people, and I was like, oh no. Um,
Yeah.
but I think with the correct cooldown timing and like more planning, you're still able to heal these fights. I think before we were more just like, um, being like personally, I was like a little lazy because I could just get through fights without really like trying as hard. My shield would just like completely cover everything. But now Oracle feels fine. You just have to play the class correctly. It's not like brain dead anymore. Like you can't just get through things by just YOLOing. Like I remember healing my first 15 when I first swapped to Oracle before the nerf, and I was just getting through it like so easily. Like why was I not playing Oracle in the first place? Because I was playing Void Weaver at the time, and I was like, wow, this is so easy. But it's not easy anymore, but it's still playable. You just have to make sure you plan everything out. And I think in general, once you prog the fight, no matter what key level, it's going to stay like almost the same in like the next key levels. Like for example, last season in City of Threads on the last boss, we figured out a pattern where we have the exact same cooldown timings every like splice. So for the shaman, which was the squishiest target, we always had their AG for like one splice, and then we had a sack for them for the second splice, and then they would wall and then sack again. So it was always that pattern, like every single splice, and it worked the entire fight. For everyone else, like the priest, I always had 20% DR up with flash heal and fade, and then the DK, like obviously never needed help. And then the AUG always had their wall and renewal or renewing blaze, like rotating. So basically, we had that pattern down since we were like doing 16s, and then the same pattern applied to like 17, 18. We never had to reprog that at all. And same with like Necrotic Wake, where you know we had the MC tech and everything. As after we progged it on a 16, it was the same on 17, 18. We timed out on 19 as well. So I would say like whenever you prog a key, it's never a waste of time, because you can always like take it to a higher level, and it's always going to be like, I mean, you might have to change like some timings depending on whatever, but in terms of like boss fights, it's mostly like you're going to use that same like cooldown timing the entire time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found that too.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah,
Quick question. With that being said, do you believe or prefer linear progression? Or, for example, if you're doing a 17 Dark Flame and you two chested and you feel pretty comfortable, would you be okay going into a 19, or do you want to go in and get reps on an 18?
that's a really good question. I think depends on how the fights are. So like for Dark Flame specifically, it's more of like a rot damage fight on the Candle King. So I don't know like how much more damage it's going to be. And I also don't really know how optimally I was playing in the 17. If I feel like I basically have all the cooldowns ready and everything, and I'm good to go on my rotation, then yeah, I would want to try the 19. But if I feel like I kind of got through the 17 like sloppily, and like we only lived it because it was a 17, then I would want to get reps on 18. And I think even if the pattern is the same going to a higher key, you still get like a little spooked. So the first time you do it, you might just panic and mess up your rotation. Even though like you know that rotation is going to stay the same, you're still going to mess it up. Like I think it's just like a mental thing. And I think so. Even though I did say that like the pattern ended up being the same for City of Threads last season, when I went a key level higher, I was like, oh no, this is an 18. And then like I just like start freaking out and like mess up some of my rotation. I'm like, oh, oops, I did my ramp too early. Oops, I set my pet too late. But I think it's mostly like a mental thing. Like once you figure out your rotation, as long as you relax and you're doing it properly, you should be able to heal through the fight. But I think it is like when you panic more because it's a higher key level that causes you to mess up. What would you think?
I think I you know, it's interesting because I like to go into a higher key and be confident about it, and then I'll get a reality check pretty quickly, like, holy moly, that hits really hard, like way harder than I thought it was going to, and I need to go back to the drawing board to make sure I have like clairvoyance when I start this fight or something like that, you know, like I have to figure out yeah, I need more reps on an 18 because a 17 isn't really relevant once you're doing a 19 to be completely real from my perspective. Like the damage profile is just way less intimidating. Like if you're doing 16s, you go into a 14, you've had Resil 15 on farm forever. 14 is going to be easy for you. You're helping out friends get vaults type thing. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I'll definitely overestimate it. And I think linear progression is important. It's not always necessary. You could easily go in and one bang the key. You know what I mean? Because everything lined up and you guys all performed together at your highest ability. And maybe someone was dead for a minute at the end of Candle King, but you still timed the key with 30 seconds left because you stayed locked or and you made it through. But yeah, it can get crazy.
Yeah, I now that you say that, I think yeah, it is. Sometimes you think you have your cooldowns planned out, but then you go into a hierarchy and you realize, no, actually, we can't do that. We have to do something different. So, yeah, in that case, I would say, like, I guess, like, linear progression does matter. I think the cases I was referring to, like, specifically did not change because we were, like,
Yes.
copying cooldowns off of people who have timed it on a hierarchy already. So we know that
Yeah.
strat works, but I don't think people have like a exact strat for Candle King yet. Like I
No.
know people have like I think we watched one of the VODs where people were using AMZ first for the first circles. I know people who don't use anything for the first one because it covers with lust. I know people who just like don't use anything for the first two. And it's just really different. And it's not like a scripted fight like the COT last boss was. So I would say in this specific case, it's like you can't really tell just because you went through it on a 17 how it's going to be on 18, 19, I guess. So yeah, in that specific case, I think that also happened with my group as well. When we did the 17, we kind of just like sloppily got through it and whatever. And then when we got to the 18, we had to like actually figure it out like a rotation.
Something is that's pretty crazy is that the key there's an aspect of there's a psychological like fear component to the number as the key level,
Yeah.
goes higher that like it really affects your performance. It's like I know what the mechanics are and when they happen, and I know the damages and healing needed is only a little bit, more dangerous and more intensive, but I something happens in here to like all of my teammates as soon as we put the key in, knowing that we haven't progged it before, and then we just fumble. Like something goes wrong that's so silly, like the smallest mistake, but the whole key is dead after that. And that's just such a fascinating component because like the top teams in the world, they timed it, right? And they didn't have that attached to it at all. They were able to go in and do what they needed to do. Same gear set if you believe you're a similar skill set, but we thought that a 19 is something it's uncharted territory for us, it's too scary, and I think it can definitely get the better of you a lot of times.
Yep. That's happened to us so many times. Like
Yeah.
we would break an 18, go into 17 like easy. Like
Yeah.
that just always happens. Um and right now we're like trying to get our last two Brazil 17s. So we're like a little behind compared to you guys, but
Priory and Floodgate, what is it?
yeah. Um
Is it really?
yeah, so yeah, you guessed it.
Yeah.
It's funny because like for Floodgate, like we're so clean in the 16. We timed it with like 3 minutes left, and then going into 17, we're suddenly like, oh no, what's happening? Everything's going wrong. Um, but yeah, like it's kind of crazy. Like I'm trying to think about what causes that, but I guess that the whole group just kind of thinks Ioki, and then it scares them or something. Like
Mhm.
I don't know exactly because once you time the key once, then that fear goes away. Like
It's
you're just
free.
like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, it's like it doesn't matter. I don't know if it's because of the stakes are higher or something, but that always happens to like
Yeah.
every group for some reason.
Yeah, quick question about your Resil journey. When you guys are progging Resil as a group, Like, and you're right now, you said you're at Brazil 16, I'm trying to get Brazil 17, right?
Hmm.
But go back to the beginning of Brazil 16. Are you trying to farm the easiest keys? Like every time you get a Priory and Floodgate, you guys are re-rolling it? Or are you starting to prog those harder keys to play them and get experience? And if you brick them, you just re-roll it? Or do you try and just get the easiest ones out of the way first?
That's a
What do
really
you
good
do?
question. So I don't know what works well for other groups, but for our group, we generally do really well when we have like 2 or 3 back-to-back keys. So whenever we have like 3 keys that are like the same, even if it's Priory, we're still going to do it. Doesn't matter how hard it is. But I think in general, like doing keys back to back really helps us. So that's what we did. We didn't really care like which key it was, as long as it was like, oh, we have 2 of these, we're gonna go do that. Um, and it's funny because one of our first 17s, I think it was our second one because we got Dark Flame first. Our second one was Theater of Pain, which is technically like not really one of the easiest ones. Like there were a couple that are easier, but we had 3 of those back to back. So we're like, you know what? Let's just send this because we've already pried it on 16, and we have 3. So we actually got it on the third one.
Wow.
And the funny thing was before we had 2 of those keys, and then we timed another homework key and they were deciding on whether they should re-roll it. It was a workery, and I was like, we need to re-roll this key because first of all, we didn't really prog workery yet at the time, and they were like, why would we re-roll a key that we haven't timed yet? Like we still need that for IO. And I was thinking in like the psychological way where I was like, um 3 keys back to back, and we have more reps on TOP. We've done this key before. We've done it like from the beginning to the end. We hadn't progged workery at all at the time. And I was like, it's Monday night. We should just like try to get this. And then it happened to turn into a Theater of Pain. And after that, we got it on the 3rd try. And I was like, well, like there you go. So I think it's definitely valuable to do keys like back to back. If you have the same key, just want to send those. Um and then if you don't have that, you might want to have like a 16 going into a 17. Like we have a 16 TOP, we do a 17 after. Um, and I think the reason is because like you just did that key, it's like fresh in your mind. And whenever we try to like go back and forth in between keys, it's like way less efficient in terms of like prog. Because I don't know about you guys, but like a lot of us have like goldfish memory. Where like next time we do the key, we're like, oh wait, there's a skip here. I forgot. um, yeah.
Yeah. So funny. My tank always expects me to remember to fear like in this one pack in Floodgate right before Swamp Face. I'm like, dude, I'm thinking about how my team's about to get absolutely smashed. I don't remember this one fear that I'm like, but yeah, it's you're right about that. I've had like similar experiences.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
especially like I don't know if it's like considered early in the season still. I guess it is kind of early in the season, compared to like when routes are more like flushed out. But
Yeah.
basically the route changes like every week right now. And
Wait. Go ahead.
um
Sorry.
and like if we did the same key last week, like it's completely different now. So that's why like people get confused. I think that's part of the reason why people get confused. Like, oh shoot, I forgot we have a skip here because that's not how we used to do it. So like I think that's part of the reason why we just get like mixed up. Go ahead.
Yeah. That happens. That's happened to us too. We've changed routes like so many times this season, week to week. Sometimes even in the session, we're like, all right, time to switch it up. But um, I did want to say what you guys are doing is my preferred way. But what we are doing is we act like we don't ever want to step into a hard key until we time the easy ones. That's what we're doing. So we haven't been in a floodgate or a priory in weeks, and we're just trying to get the easier ones away. We've had like I remember when we were doing Rizzo 17, we needed like 3 keys left, and we had like 3 17 priories in the bags, and we just re-rolled all of them because we were like, priory's so hard. It's like only a few teams have timed them at this point, like that sort of thing. And yeah, I mean, if you're going into it with that attitude, of course, bro, we're not timing that. Of course, we're not timing a 17 priory when only 7 other teams have timed it in the world because you're thinking you can't be number 8. Like,
Exactly. You could be number
but
8.
right, you could. And So that's an important thing to keep in mind. I like what you guys are doing. I definitely would recommend it next time we have that opportunity come up in our Brazil journey.
Yeah, and I think it depends on like the point in the season as well. I think for us, it
Yeah,
feels like kind of early in the season, so there's no point in
it
like
is.
trying to target keys and stuff. Like last season, we didn't really start targeting keys until like the last like 2-3 weeks of the season. We were trying to get like Don Baker or Miss or whatever. I don't remember, but that was when we and then also fishing keys was a thing last season. So
Yeah.
that was when we really started to target keys. But I feel like this season, even if you time in 17 or 18 right now, like it won't matter in like 2-3 months. It's
Yeah.
going to be you're going to end the season with like 20s maybe or higher even. But that is also part of the reason why like I think normally we do like to target like easier keys. If we feel like we're like actually pushing. Like right now, it doesn't feel like we're like actually pushing to the highest end yet. We're still like we still have I'm still rating, one other person on my team still rating, and basically only playing like on the weekends right now. But once we get to a point where we feel like we're like fully geared and with like corruptions and everything, we have like our full bis, like everything's fully upgraded, and then all that's left is the pushing and everything. I think that is when we'll finally decide to
Mm.
actually go for the like easier points first and whatever. Um but even then, like I think we will always prioritize having like if we have 2-3 of the same keys, we'll still do that first. um I think that the only key that we were like avoiding last season was Grimbatol, and we just did not touch that key for like an entire month until the end, where we already had like pretty much every 18, and we still had a Grimbatol 16. And that was like, okay, maybe now we should finally try to get a Grimbatol 17, because it's like I guess last season's keys were also just really polarizing. Like Arakara, you could do like 1920, and then Grimbatol was still like a 17. So that
Yeah.
was like an exception, I guess. But yeah, we really didn't touch Grimbatol until like the very end, and we still never got the Grimbatol 17 because it was like the
Mm.
last week, and then we tried to fish like 3-4 keys and we failed all of them, and we're like, okay, well that's the end of the season, I guess. See you next season. Um, but yeah, so I think we're gonna do like a similar thing this season where we're only going to really focus on the keys that we really want to target
Mm.
towards the end. I don't think there's a point doing that right now. And every key we do is going to be like over, like it's going to be a higher key later.
A
But
lot
yeah.
higher, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point is that um someone that's stressed right now and like looking at title cutoffs and things like that, and we're currently about to be in May, like the season, and we're getting new content very soon. The season's going to be a good while longer. You have quite a bit of time to catch up if you feel like you're behind, or to keep cranking if you want to keep going higher. You know what I mean? You always have to keep in mind like where you're at and where you want to be, and your research or your playtime should reflect that, really. If you need to put in more research also, as opposed to, because sometimes you can play your heart out and you can play a 12-hour session on a Saturday and you're having a great time, but you were not really getting anywhere after a certain point. You know what I mean? And you might need to just take a break and look at what other people are doing if you're feeling like you're hitting a wall. So that balance and that sort of like intention and knowing where you want to go and how much time you have to get there, that's been really helpful in my journey.
Yeah, you brought up a really good point because for me, I feel like for my team, we feel like we have limited time to play. So that's
Yeah.
why we're like, oh, we can't really do anything right now. We're even if we break all our keys, like we still want to keep going.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on to the next topic. What is your favorite healer
Yep.
to play?
I really enjoy Holy Pally. And I'll say my top three: Holy Pally, Preservation Evoker, Disc Priest. Those are my top three. And I started playing Holy Pally and then I played Holy Priest, and then I played Preservation Evoker, and I played Shaman. I play a little bit of Monk. I don't like Druid that much, but yeah, those are my top three. What's your top three?
Okay, definitely Disc Priest is one of them. Um,
Yeah,
Mistweaver. I really like Mistweaver just because of like the playstyle. I think I don't like the fact that it's melee, but I do like um I don't really know. Like fist weaving is just fun to me. Um and then Resto Shaman, I really like it because it's like a simple, really nice chill class and very like
yeah,
straightforward. So I was kind of
mm,
sad that Resto Shaman meta kind of went away last season because it was like really good. Um
yeah,
but yeah, I think Prez Evoker is the one that I haven't really gotten to touch as much. Um, and I don't like that it has short range. Like I was trying
yeah.
to play Prez Evoker on the last boss of Rookery, and it was a nightmare trying to like reach everyone on both sides. And I would say like in a pug is probably even worse because you can't really tell people what to
Yeah.
do. How do you deal with that? Because you said you like Prez Evoker.
Okay, so then I have to go back and clarify that the healers I mentioned, okay, I'm a flavor of the month healer. Like whatever is good is what I'm playing so that I can best help my team and so that I can ensure I can get into groups in the first place because I pug a lot at the beginning of seasons and I want to make sure that I'm able to play and have fun playing the game. And that's my version of fun is like being the strongest and most capable healer available at the moment. So when Prez Evoker was meta, it was a lot of fun for me. I don't know how it is now. And when Holy Pally was meta, it was a lot of fun for me, but I don't know how it is now. So the best way that I don't know how it would be in these keys, but in those keys, with Prez Evoker and the range restrictions, I was just being a very mobile player and running up and down the court trying to make sure my team is safe. But it's definitely weird and different and interesting. And I like what you brought up about melee versus being like a caster healer. It's so interesting. Um, and the profiles, the healing profiles versus and damage profiles that each one carries, totally different, but they're all a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
Holy Paladin, I haven't really touched it as much either because I'm also
Mm.
Flavor of the Month healer. I mean, if you want to be like high and you basically have to play Flavor of the
Yeah.
Month, but there hasn't been a Holy Paladin or Preservoker meta so far since I started playing. So I basically only played like Mistweaver, Disc Priest, and Resto Druid. Resto Druid, I will say, I just can't figure it out. I could never I could never like get good at that class. I could figure out
Yeah.
the healing. It was really good. I don't know if you know the dungeons from that season. It was all the Dragonflight dungeons. But
Yeah.
Halls of Infusion, the third boss, Kajin, that was like the rot fight. That was the Candle King at the time,
Yeah.
basically. And Wrestle Druid was really good at that fight. So despite like me not being good at Wrestle Druid, I still timed it on a 19 Tyron because Wrestle Druid just excels at that kind of fight. And I think the main thing I struggled with on Wrestle Druid was like DPSing because you basically have to like put your hots up and then go into cat form, cat weave, and that was not something I was used to because as Mistweaver and Disc Priest, you're always DPSing while healing. So that was another thing that like I couldn't really get the hang of. I tried to play a bit of Wrestle Druid outside of that season, and it's just it doesn't feel good. Like you're doing so much busy work and you're not really healing that much. It really only
Yeah.
felt good when it was really strong. And I think that's the reason why I like playing FOTM, just because you feel so much stronger when you're playing the healer that's good. Like last season, this Priest Void Weaver was just miles ahead of every other healer, and like playing anything else just felt like you couldn't get the throughput, and
Yeah.
it just felt so bad. Um, I actually think
100% right.
I actually think this season though, there are a lot of healers that could kind of match Oracle Disc Priest, especially after the nerfs. The only problem with those healers is that like it doesn't have the big absorb shields that Disc Priest has.
Yeah.
But in terms of throughput, like they're really good. Like I tried playing Resto Shaman like, a little. I think I was like 660 atom level, and I was healing with 15 Cinder Brew like randomly. I didn't really even play Resto Shaman that much at all, outside of like pushing on last season before this priest became meta, and that felt really good. I was actually pushing on Mistweaver this season before I swapped to Disc Priest. I had all Rizil 14s before I swapped. Um, so yeah, Mistweaver feels really good as well. The only problem is just that we're not playing a melee comp, so it doesn't really go well with the comp that we're playing with. But I think multiple healers feel really good this season so far. Have you played any other healers so far this season?
No, I haven't, and I was worried that I was going to have to, and then I was like, okay, I'll just start gearing something when I know. And so far, we have to wait for upcoming tournaments, but so far it seems like Oracle, just based on the leaderboards, currently it's seeming like Oracle is still in a pretty good spot. And I agree that all the healers are capable, but for me in my journey, I think I'm going to stick with Oracle for now. What do you think you're going to do?
I'm always still going to stick with whatever's the best. But
Yeah.
I think like I have a different mentality because like every season I'm ever since last season, um, I've just been playing every healer spec. Like even after
Wow.
there's a meta, I still fill my vaults on every other character. I mean, some characters I just do like 110 a week, but um, I just have that mentality of like if anything ever changes, I'm ready to swap. And then so last season when this race became meta, it was already at like 620 something when I swapped over. So it wasn't even that bad because I already had been doing vaults on it every week. But I just like multiclassing. I've always liked it. Um and even in classic, I had like me and my husband combined, we had like 40 characters that were max level. And that was in classic. Like way
Whoa.
harder to level. Yeah, I was in college at the time still, but it was during COVID and it was online. So I would just literally get my mage and get 4 accounts with like alt on it, and I would just AoE farm, boost all of them, and then
Crazy.
um and then the reason for that was because I wanted to raid more, and you could only raid on every character 1 week per week. There's like a lockout, so I was like, if I want to play more of this character, I gotta level more of it. And then it just got like into an addiction. I guess maybe I'm just addicted to leveling alts. Um, but it was it was kind of like soothing for me because like
Yeah,
while I was listening in class, I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna AoE farm. Like that was just it just turned into something like as a habit that I do. Like now
that's
I don't
cool.
do that anymore. I just listen to podcasts. But back then that I think I just used that to pass time.
Yeah,
And yeah, I just got used to multiclassing because of it.
that's cool. I laughed because it brought up a memory of last season. The moment that I found out I wasn't going to be playing Resto Shaman anymore, which is what I was playing, um, and I was going to be playing Disc. I leveled my Disc that was level 70 to 80, and then spammed level 8s or 9s or whatever was like the cutoff at that point to be able to get the crest that you needed. And I did that in like a few days. It was awful. I just like spammed so many keys, and I wish that what I was more prepared, like you were saying, was already 620. My guy was 0, you know? So it was crazy. It
Yeah,
was crazy.
so
Memory.
that's kind of interesting. We have like completely opposite approaches. Like you're like I'm not doing anything until I have to reroll.
Yeah,
And I'm more like I'm gonna have everything ready just in case.
yeah.
Um but it's not only because for me it's not only because I'm like trying to be more prepared. I
Mm,
genuinely just like playing different classes and like comparing and stuff. Like
mm,
for me to see how powerful Oracle really is, like came from me playing other characters. So like when I was playing Mistweaver, I was thinking about how I don't have shields constantly. Like if people die to an overlap of a cast, they're just dead. And
yeah.
I don't have that like powered shield to shield them from the overlap damage. and I can really feel like when I'm playing Oracle that like, oh, I'm just, I guess, that much more powerful. Um, and then I also have been playing DPS because last season I got title as AUG and tank. So this season I also want to get title on DPS. That's the only class. I don't count AUG either. That's the only like role that I haven't gotten title on yet. And I definitely think it helps you as a healer to play different roles, even if you're not like going for title on it specifically, but just understanding how other roles work really helps you with your healing. And I think it
Yeah,
definitely helps me by playing tank to like get better at healing myself.
absolutely. Do you find that? Okay, so last season I played Aug as well, and I would be. And you mentioned earlier their rotation is like mind-numbingly boring and simple, and so I would go from doing a City of Threads on my Evoker, on my AUG, back to my Void Weaver Discipline Priest to do the same key. And I'd be trying to spam like Eruption on my Priest. And that's my keybind for like Feather or something. And so it's just like, do you find that having like alts and, or even other specs, like from going from tank to healer, do you find that keybind or like muscle memory issue?
That's a really good question. Um, and sometimes, yes, but I think I'm so used to it, and I always have like similar keybinds on each character. Like my defensive's always on the same button, my kick's always on the same button for every class. Um, like for me, Eruption was the same keybind as Smite, I think, and it was like I'm always gonna spam this button the same
Mm.
time, or that same keybind. I mean, um, and so that really helps me a lot because and I only have to memorize like the couple of different ones that I need to know. But overall, um, everything I have is like pretty much lined up on every character. Like my racial is always the same. I think like there yesterday I was trying to meld something off. Like I think in Dark Flame there was like that Shadow Blast thing in the last boss. I was trying to meld it off on my DK, and I was like, "Oh shoot, I'm a dwarf," and then I just hit the candle with it. But outside of that, yeah, outside of that, like the keybind itself is like mostly the same on each character, and I think it's very important to do that if you do play multiple
Yes,
classes.
100%.
Yeah. All right. And then the last topic I have is what advice would you give to someone who just started healing Mythic Plus and wants to improve?
I think that you should consider where you're coming from and where you want to be going. You know, it's totally different if you're coming from PvP or you're coming from you're just picking up the game, or if you're coming from a raid environment. You know, it's all about the perspective and it's about the journey and the destination. All of that tied together. Keep that in mind and stay fully locked. You know, always try and get better. Try and make friends. Like I was trying to think like how, because like I'm a solution oriented person. Like I just want to find the solution to anything I see as an issue. And you're telling me that your husband has a really hard time and people are having a really hard time like with social people that have social
Anxiety.
difficulties,
Yep.
anxiety. Um, like the best way that I could think of, and like I get invited a lot. Like I literally just get invited and someone's like key question mark or something like that, or the key name like Cinderbrew 14 question mark. You know, like maybe something like that. Like, but I just want to stress how important it is to try and make friends in this MMO, in this massive game that we're all playing and enjoying and having a blast playing. Try and have fun, try and make friends, try and get better, enjoy. That's my message.
Yep. Definitely agree
Yeah.
with that for sure. And since you come from a PvP background, why
Yeah.
don't you go over like sort of how you transitioned over?
The way that I transitioned was I started from absolutely nothing and I kept the mindset that I'm really enjoying this content, this component of World of Warcraft. So I'm going to dedicate a long-term perspective and over time it's taking me many, many years. Doesn't have to take you that long. You've only been doing it for a year or two. But I took a long-term perspective and said I'm going to try and get better and try and build my network. And so that's what I've done.
Okay. And when did you really feel like you made it, or do you still not feel like that?
No, I don't. No, no, and I'm completely like blown away that you asked me to do this interview, and I appreciate it, and I've had a blast, or this podcast, I should say. But no, I'm not where I want to be, and yeah, I'm just going to keep going and doing my thing to get to where I have in my mind of where I want to be.
Yeah, that's like really nice hearing from you, because I was in another podcast recently from someone else, and they were telling me you have already achieved this much. Like, you were like top 10 NA healer last season. Like, what more do you want? Like, you're already at the top, right? But I feel like if you genuinely like want to be good, you can't just
Yeah.
be like content with where you are. Like, there's always more. There's always more to keep going. I feel like there's so much more for me to improve. And the thing is, the better I get at the game, the more I feel like I'm missing out. Like, because you open your door to, you realize more how much you're missing out. And I think I had like a different mentality coming into the game, because I did get title my first season. And that season I felt like I was good. I was like, I'm already like conquering like everything. I'm already so good. And then like reality check hit in season 4, and I was like, oh, I don't know how to play Resto Druid. I gotta figure this out again. I gotta rebuild. And that's when I realized, like, just because you get title in one season does not mean you're gonna get title every single season. Every season there's different dungeons. You have to play a different class maybe. You might lose your friends that you made. You have to make more friends. And it's not always the same. Like, I know some people who got title like in, I don't know, like 2-3 seasons ago, and they just came back and they're like completely clueless because it's different dungeons and everything. So it's good to have like a more humble mentality and think like every time you're doing something, it's new. And that's another thing you brought up that was like I really resonate with, which is when you come into the gaming atmosphere of this community, this new community, you can't just be like, oh, I can just use my skills from what I learned from PvP or raiding and then transfer it to here. Like, no, you have to start from the ground up again, basically. Yeah. And you treat it like you don't know anything. And that's how you truly get better. And I was talking about this similar topic, I think last night with someone. And it was, so I think there were a lot of like people who are from Raid that go to Mythic Plus or vice versa, and they genuinely think they're going to be good at that other content, which is not true at all. Like, I think your ego definitely will stop you from getting better if you think just because you're a raider you can just immediately get good at M+. Like, that's just not true at all, and not true vice versa either. And I think raiding this season in like a Hall of Fame guild really opened my mind up, because before I thought like, oh, raiding is really easy. Like, Mythic Plus is obviously the harder content. Like, yeah, because before I only got CE like towards the end of season, like a month before season ended, and I was like, this is boring. Like, raiding's boring, whatever. But then this season I realized raiding, like the hard part about raiding is actually at the start of the season. Versus M+ is harder, gets harder at the end of the season, where you're like pushing the highest keys. So it's different. Like, we can't really compare like raiding at the end of the tier when everything's all nerfed and everyone's all geared up, compared to like the start of season where nobody's geared and you're trying to kill these mythic bosses on like the least nerfed version, like after Race to World first. So once I realized that, and I was like, I really need to improve my raw HPS rotation in raid, because that was what I was lacking on, and that was what like most healers lack when they first transition from M+ to raiding. That was when I started getting really like a lot better. Like, I think when we were progging Mythic Muggsy 2 weeks ago, when we started progging it, I was like always bottom on healing, and all these other healers that were they don't even do Mythic Plus at all. Like, that just goes to show that like just because you're good at Mythic Plus does not mean that you're just automatically going to be good at raiding, especially as a healer. And I was trying to figure out like, why can't I get my HPS up? Why can't I like do this? And then I had to literally go and ask this other Mistweaver who was like always top on the meters, and I was like, so how did you do it? And then they were trying to figure it out with me, like, oh, you're missing crit here, you're missing this, you're missing
Mm.
this. And then like I had to slowly figure out all the little things that I was missing. And then the funny part was, even after I fixed my gear and my most of my rotation, I was still like kind of low on healing. I was keeping up with like the lowest healer, but I wasn't like middle of the pack yet. But what pushed me over that was like the little things I didn't fix, like keeping up my Jadefire stomp uptime. Like I had to stand in it the whole time. The funny thing is, like, whenever the boss got moved by the tank, I would just run out of my Jadefire stomp, and I just didn't even realize that. And I would like watch my VOD. I would like compare all the buff timings, and in the end, the thing that helps me improve was something I figured out myself. So even after all these people try to help me or whatever, I ended up figuring out the thing myself. And then once I figured that out, like from one week to another, I went up by like 500k HPS, and I was like keeping up with like the top Mistweaver in my raid. And so that's like an example of me going over to raiding from Mythic Plus and realizing, okay, I'm not like all of my skills from Mythic Plus don't necessarily transfer over. We don't deal with like healing 5 to 10 minute long fights like constantly for the entire time, keeping up the same rotation. In Mythic Plus, we focus more on like planning our cooldowns and defensives and like burst healing and everything. And you just get through that like window. There's like, I mean, there's bosses like Candle King, but overall, still we're planning stuff, and it's a 5-man group, so it's really different. So yeah, I think the moral of the story is, going from one content to another, you still have to treat it like you're starting over, and you have to relearn all the skills, and just make sure like you always stay humble, always learning, always feel like you're trying to get better, always feel like you don't know anything. And it's funny because like if some random person saw me and they were like, you were like 3600 last season, like aren't you already good? And I'm like, no, I'm still learning, I'm still getting better, I'm still like, and that's not me like just trying to downplay myself. That's genuinely how I feel. I always feel like
Yeah.
I can always improve. I always ask my peers who are actually Disc Priest mains, because like me, I'm not really a Disc Priest main. I'm playing whatever healer depending on the season. And so I always ask people myself. And it's really important to always ask questions and always like try to solve things and always look for more to improve on and never stop learning. Do you have
Yeah.
anything to add to
You're
that?
no. Yeah, that was amazing. But I'll say I too am someone that craves feedback, constructive criticism, preferably, so that I can get better. That's the goal for me.
Yep.
Yeah, and so I agree with that. I resonate with that.
All right. And
Yeah.
final comments or questions or anything before we wrap this up?
I really appreciate you having me on. To everyone that watched, please come hang out on Twitch at Bussbussglug. I have a Discord. I have a YouTube. I'm doing stuff. Hope to see you soon. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. And the reason I invited you is because I saw that you do like VOD review videos, which is really helpful because my channel is all about helping healers get better. And yeah. So thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. I had a blast, like especially talking to a fellow healer main, a similar high level Mythic Plus content, and we actually have a lot of similarities and a lot of differences on how we approach things. So that's how, just you don't have to only approach things in one specific way. There's plenty of things that you can do differently depending on what works for you. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on, and we will see you guys in the next episode.
Sounds good. Bye.
Bye.